Hello friends, this is Jayant Ronkar working as Assistant Professor, Department of Information Technology, Tulsiramji Gaikwad Patil College of Engineering and Technology. So today we are going to learn about mapping cardinalities. This is the topic of subject database management system. So what is mapping cardinality means? Mapping cardinalities or cardinality ratio express the number of entities which are associated with another entity and can be associated via the relationship set. Mapping cardinalities are most useful in describing binary relationship set, although they can be contribute to the description of relationship set that involve more than two entity sets. For a binary relationship set R between entity set A and B, the mapping cardinality must be one of the following. So mapping cardinality, which expresses the number of entities which are associated with another entity via relationship set, and the describing the binary relationship set. And mapping cardinalities can be one of the following types, that is one-to-one mapping cardinality, one-to-many mapping cardinality, many-to-one mapping cardinality, and many-to-many mapping cardinality. We will see one by one. So here in this diagram you can see figure A represent one-to-one mapping cardinality and B represent one-to-many mapping cardinality. So here we have two entity set, that is entity set A and entity set B. So entity set A is having attributes A1, A2, A3 and A4. Likewise, entity set B is having attributes B1, B2, B3 and B4. Here in one-to-one mapping cardinality, all the attributes or individual attribute, that is A1 is associated with only one attribute of entity set B1, and A2 is associated with B2, A3 is associated with B3 and A4 is associated with B4. So in one-to-one mapping cardinality, each attribute of one entity set is associated with only single attribute or only one attribute of entity set B or another entity set. So one-to-one mapping cardinality is associated one-to-one attribute of the attributes which are available among that entity sets. Then one-to-many mapping cardinality represented by figure B, where entity set A is having attributes A1, A2 and A3. Likewise, entity set B is having attributes B1, B2, B3, B4 and B5. Now we can see very easily attribute A1 of entity set A is associated with two attributes of entity set B, that is B1 and B2. Likewise, A2 attribute of entity set A is associated with two attributes of entity set B, that is B3 and B4. And again, attributes of entity set A is associated with only one attribute of entity set B. So this is what one-to-many attributes means. Minimum one attribute is associated with the another entity. Likewise, A1 of entity set A is associated with B, and if we will take example of A3 attribute in entity set A is associated with only one attribute in entity set B, that is B5. So point to note here, some elements in A and B may not be mapped to many elements in the another set. So this is what one-to-one mapping cardinality and about the one-to-many mapping cardinality. Now we will see many-to-one mapping cardinality and many-to-many mapping cardinality. Here, in many-to-one mapping cardinality, entity set A is having the 5 attributes A1, A2, A3, A4 and A5. So A1 and A2 of entity set A is associated with only one attribute of entity set B. That is, many attributes, more than one attributes from entity set A is associated with one attribute of entity set B. Likewise, A4 and A5 attribute of entity set A is associated with only single attribute, that is B3 of entity set B. This is what about many-to-one mapping cardinality. Then figure B represent here many-to-many mapping cardinality. In that, one attribute of entity set 1, that is A, is associated with multiple attributes available in entity set B. This is called a many-to-many mapping cardinalities. So here you have to note the point: some elements in A and B not be mapped to any elements in the other set. Then we will see mapping cardinalities affect ER design. How mapping cardinality affect the ER design? It can be make access date an attribute of account. We can say it is the access date is the date which is taking an account, taking in consideration while we are accessing the data, instead of relationship attribute. If each account can have only one customer, that is, the relationship from account to customer is many-to-one. Relationship from account to customer many-to-one, or equivalently customer to account is one-to-many. So this is what how effect of mapping cardinalities in the ER design. So while we are designing the ER model, we need to consider these mapping cardinalities. Likewise, in this example, account entity is associated with many of the attributes of account entity is associated with only one attribute of the customer entity. Like here, Johnson is having two accounts, that is A101 and A201. But if we consider that account A101 and A201 is associated with only one customer, that is Johnson, so account to customer is many-to-one mapping cardinality, and customer to account is having one-to-many mapping cardinality. This is all about the mapping cardinalities of the database management system. Thank you.